In the NFL draft, players who are taken in the later rounds are mostly expected to be third strings or special teamers or even cut before the season begins. But every year, a handful of these players exceed those expectations and become starters or even great NFL players. We call these prospects sleepers. So I've identified 5 sleepers, players that I think at the very least are being underrated and will outperform their eventual draft selection, or who could even become the next late round success story. And make sure you hit that subscribe button for more NFL draft content. We're going to start off scorching hot with the first of 2 running backs on this list, and that is Lan Larison, the running back from UC Davis. I mean absolutely no hyperbole here when I think that he has been the most fun player to watch in this class for me. He is also, again no hyperbole, the best receiving threat from the running back position in this class. He runs proper routes. There's a highlight reel of him catching a corner route in literal double coverage. He has the most one-handed catches out of anyone in this class. He genuinely makes them for fun. He's got good speed, ran a 4.46 at his pro day. He's literally running away from every FCS defender, which yes, UC Davis is in the FCS, but he's a really patient runner between the tackles. He's really good in pass pro, only allowed 2 pressures in his career at that stat, and he's obviously produced at an insanely high level. He's the FCS all-purpose yards leader. He had 1,470 rush yards and 853 receiving yards this year. His 853 receiving yards led the nation. I'm talking FBS and FCS. That's right, more than Ashton Genty, more than Travian Henderson, more than Amarian Hampton, you name it. It was Lan Larison who had the most receiving yards from the running back position in the country this year. And that's what I'm talking about. He has legit wide receiver ability. And he was UC Davis's offense. He played wide receiver, running back. He was a wildcat quarterback for quite a few plays. Made some very nice passes, might I add. And he was a punt returner. And what you're getting from Larison is really just that special player. And yes, if we're thinking about his weaknesses, even sleepers have weaknesses, right? There is the level of competition question coming from UC Davis, but on his tape, because he was simply so much better than everyone else and so dominant, it was hard for me to kind of come up with a weakness because he hasn't really played against the level of competition which would reveal that. So it's not that Larison doesn't have weaknesses, I'm sure he does, but it certainly wasn't that clear to me looking at his tape playing against basically, it looked like JV players when he was playing against them because he's just that good. And no offense to FCS guys, people like Ethan Chisholm, I love him as well. But he is just so damn good. And the bottom line for me here is that I think a team needs to draft this guy instead of getting, let's say, a backup long snapper in the 5th round, because I think he has genuine running back ability in the NFL. He can be a great receiving back. He can be part of a running back rotation potentially. I just need to see this guy work out because I truly believe in his ability. All you need to do if you're from the FCS is dominate your competition and the league will find you, right? We've got a William and Mary player this year. We've got Ethan Chisholm as well. We've had players like Cooper Kupp in the past. You need to dominate at that level to have your best shot of going to the league. And it is absolutely clear, 110%, that Lan Larison has dominated the competition. So for me, he's a big sleeper, one of my favorite, if not the favorite player in the class for me, and is well worth a 3rd-day draft pick. The second running back on this list is Jacory Croskey-Merritt, the running back from Arizona. And it already sounds a bit cliche to find the next quote-unquote Bucky Irving, but I do think that Jacory Croskey-Merritt is the closest player we have to that in this draft class. Now, he did only play 1 game in 2024 due to eligibility issues, and as a result has been forgotten about in a very deep running back class. But he's just so creative with the ball in his hands, and I think that is really what sets Bucky Irving apart from others in his class at the time. He just sees the field differently from other running backs, and he's basically able to see holes that don't even exist yet. And his elusiveness is fantastic. He's got the shiftiness to create and set up those non-existent gaps. He's got fantastic and really fast feet and good acceleration to hit those gaps when they eventually come open. And his acceleration and deceleration ability gives him fantastic potential in a wide zone heavy offense. He's got good speed to burn the defenders as well once he gets clear of the second level, and he really showed off his ability at the East-West Shrine Bowl. And again, you just see that creativeness, that elusiveness and that shiftiness, which really makes for a fantastic running back. Yeah, you want your running back to be able to give those home run hits and run away from defenders, but ultimately you want your running back to turn a potential 2-yard gain into a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-yard gain. And I think Croskey-Merritt is one of the best players in this class at doing that. Now, yes, he does have quite a chaotic running style. There are too many lateral cuts, and as a result of trying to find those holes that don't exist yet, he will pass up on holes that are already there. And he does rely on seeing and reacting rather than anticipating and predicting. And he's got a very upright running style. So he is getting absolutely rocked by linebackers regularly, which is concerning when you're already playing such a physical and demanding position like running back. If you're opening yourself up to some really hard, heavy shots, it does question how much durability you're going to have at the next level. And he's also not great in pass protection, which I know for a lot of people, for when you're evaluating running backs, might not be the most important thing, but fundamentally, that's how you stay on the field as a running back, by being able to protect your quarterback in pass pro. And if you're on the field and your quarterback's getting lit up because you're not good at pass protection, you're going to come straight off the field. So being good at that and increasing his awareness in pass protection and his blocking technique especially is going to be really important for him in kind of really carving out that starting potential role, or at least that rotational role. And I think also because of his lack of playtime this year, we've also seen an unproven element of his receiving ability. Now, his inability to play this year really was not his fault. There was some confusion with him thinking he had an extra year of eligibility because someone, I believe, at another school, he played like one game for a team, maybe New Mexico or Alabama State, I'm not quite sure which one, and then redshirted for the rest of the year, and then someone else wore his number. And the NCAA saw that a player that wore his number played for the whole year, so they removed him from Arizona this year, basically. And if he was playing for Arizona, I truly believe that the Arizona team, the Arizona offense, would have looked so much better. One of my big gripes about watching Teterow McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona, is that offense was just hard to watch at times. You got nerve feet of the quarterback bailing out of clean pockets, and there really wasn't anyone else on that offense that could really do anything. If they had Jacory, Croskey-Merritt, I think Arizona would have looked like a completely different team. And in that first game that he played for them, he had a really good stat line. Now, for me, the bottom line with Croskey-Merritt is that it is a really deep running back class, and I think as a result, he is going to go later in the draft, and then he's going to really need some luck to try and get those meaningful snaps that you need to prove yourself. But I can feel good about, if I was the GM, waiting until day 3, say I've already got 2 good running backs on the roster, maybe one's slightly older, and taking a swing on someone like Jacory, Croskey-Merritt with a kind of a late round flyer. And I do think that if he does get those potential starting snaps or those rotational snaps, that he could be one of those players that by week 9, if you're playing fantasy, everyone's like, pick up this unheard of sleeper because he'll eventually start getting into the rotation, and when he does, he's never going to leave it. And that for me is the bottom line with Jacory, Croskey-Merritt. My third sleeper is Zah Frazier, the cornerback from UTSA. And stop me if you've heard this one before, because it sounds a lot like a player we already know in the league. Now, Zah Frazier is an incredibly long cornerback. He literally has otherworldly length. I'm actually going to put a photo of him playing on the screen because he looks like the Slender Man out there. He's got 95th percentile wingspan, 90th percentile arm length, and you can see that immediately. I never needed to work out where Zah Frazier was when I was watching his tape because he stands out immediately. He's got good match and mirror ability. I think he's quite fluid, and when he gets those vines on you, it is absolutely over. Now, I do want to see more of that. He played a very interesting style at UTSA, which I'll talk about when I talk about his weaknesses, but he's got good patience. He doesn't jump inside if a wide receiver threatens that inside slightly, and he's fast. Ran a 4.36 40 at the combine, and you can see that when he's covering vertical routes down the field. He was able to match Matthew Golden when they played against Texas, and he ran a 4.29, and that speed is definitely there, and he's got good ball production and ball skills. 6 interceptions and 5 pass breakups this year. But obviously, not a perfect prospect. He's a sleeper for that exact reason. Interestingly, I think he's quite hesitant. There are multiple instances where he would, say, have a free rush to try and sack the quarterback or try and tackle the ball carrier behind the line of scrimmage, and he would just slow down before trying to tackle them, and as a result would then miss really the opportunity to make that play. Happened at least 3 times in the game against Coastal Carolina that I was watching, and as a result, he's not that aggressive. Like, I feel like he has great physical tools with his insanely long arms, his good speed, but he doesn't really use them that well. As I was kind of alluding to earlier, I don't know if this is I don't know if this is how the UTSA defensive coordinator or coaches wanted him to play, but he's often more in soft press. So basically, rather than trying to jam receivers at the line, he's just lined up close to them and will mirror them. And I want to see him use that length more. I want to see him be aggressive, because on the few reps where I saw he was able to really get his arm in there, it really did upset the receiver at a much better level than just being in that soft press and just kind of mirroring where they move. And that's the thing with Frazier, is that at the moment his mentality isn't quite matching his physical tools. And with that 6'3" frame and those long arms, he's pretty slight. Like I said, he looks like a slender man. He's not just a built-out 6'3". He is quite slight, and he is an older prospect with only 1 year of actual game experience, which we have with someone like a Tyler Shook as well, which is quite an interesting scenario where, because of injuries or inability to play for whatever reason, they've been in college and they're an older prospect now, but they actually don't have that much game time and game experience. And really, for me, the bottom line with Zah Frazier is that he's going to have to play in a cover 3 scheme that runs a lot of press coverage. So he's not going to be a fit for every team whatsoever. But I do think that given the right circumstances, Frazier could become a competent starter, and then from there can develop. Thing is that at cornerback, it's such a volatile position that if he starts getting burnt, and by being drafted, say, on day 3, you don't really have the same margin for error, we'll say, if you're a first round corner, and we know that first round corners can struggle. So if you are, say, a 4th, 5th, 6th round corner who then gets put in and doesn't kind of immediately play at least an average starter level, your leash is very short. So if Frazier does get the opportunity, he needs to make sure he takes it. He needs to really show out in camp. He needs to show that he's taken the right steps to kind of hide his weaknesses, or is in the right scheme to hide his weaknesses, and was also in a scheme and a position to make sure his strengths shine. But if that is the case, then I really do believe that we could see Frazier as a starter in the league. My 4th sleeper is Quay Robinson, the edge from Alabama. And I really, really like this guy. His high-end flashes are absolutely there. He had a 24% pass rush win rate this year, which was 4th among all edge defenders. He's got a really good natural juice and pass rush feel, I think. He's 6'4", 236 pounds, 35.5-inch arms. He's an athlete, and you can definitely see that on tape. He's got good speed and quickness as well. And also, in limited sample size, which I'll talk about in a second, but he did display glimpses of a good array of pass rush moves. Now, those need to be fleshed out more, and they need to probably be set up better as well. But he showed, obviously, speed around the edge, which is his primary way of winning. Also showed a nice long arm at points, had an inside counter as well. And I also think he's positionally versatile. Yes, he's more of that 3-4 outside linebacker, but I do think that there were a few times on his tape where he was winning up the middle as more of that blitzing kind of linebacker position. And I think you can, as a result, move Quay Robinson around the formation quite a lot. And even if you wanted to, kind of play him more as an off-ball linebacker. Now, thing is with Robinson is that it is a smaller sample size. He only had 163 pass rushing snaps in his career, with 108 of those coming this year. This guy was buried on the depth chart behind Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, Chris Braswell. I mean, obviously we know that Alabama is just a stable for producing great pass rushers, and unfortunately Quay Robinson was buried behind those guys. I don't know why he didn't try and transfer out. It might have been a really good idea for him, and also maybe play 4 years of college instead of just 3. But nevertheless, he has declared. And I think he needs to, as a result, continue to develop on an NFL roster. And really, that's not easy, right? Like, ultimately, he's probably going to be buried again by other great NFL players. Even an average NFL player is a fantastic college starter. So he's going to find himself in a very similar situation in the league. And he is still raw, and he does rely a lot on winning with his speed. So I do want to see those pass rush moves be developed and be practiced and be utilized basically in real game scenarios, or at least in the practice field. And I think he needs to get a bit more stout against the run. Again, as an edge rusher, a lot of people think it's all about rushing the passer and getting the sacks and the pressures, and it absolutely is. But fundamentally, you also need to be able to protect and defend the run to a degree. And I think Robinson's run defense isn't quite where it needs to be able to be that rotational guy and be relied upon. But fundamentally, with Robinson, I like him as that 3-4 outside linebacker. As I said, he's got the potential to rush with the speed off the edge, have him in that kind of wide 9 position, a little bit like a James Pierce Jr. almost. But also, I do think that he'd be a really good, like kind of like a hybrid linebacker, almost in that Jalen Walker role. Like, I think Robinson would be a really good like QB spy if you need him to be. I think he can also offer you that versatility of rushing from a 2-point stance, kind of up the middle in that more blitzing linebacker role. And I think that versatility is really how Robinson's going to have his best shot at trying to carve himself a role as a pass rusher in the NFL, and might even be a designated pass rusher at some point. But fundamentally, I really believe in the athlete. I really believe in the tools. I believe in the projection. It just might take a while for him to reach that. And as we know, and as I've said, if you're a late round prospect, you don't quite have that long leash. So I really, really hope, for Robinson's sake and for mine, that he hits the ground running and makes an impression, because if he does, he could be an NFL starter. And my fifth and final sleeper is Isaac TeSlaa, the wide receiver from Arkansas. And the first play I watched of this guy, I fell in love with him immediately. It was the game against Texas A&M. He was running a corner route from the slot position and scored a touchdown from it. Really great physicality he showed. He was getting kind of caught up by the defensive back that was covering him, but he's big, right? He's 6'3" and 5/8". That's 87th percentile. He's 214 pounds. That's 79th percentile. And that big slot projection allows him to play really nicely through contact. He's got good wiggle for his size as well. He's not just a contested catch or someone that wants to box out defenders and win that way. He has good wiggle for his size. He, has good, nice footwork. He's got good agility, and he can create genuine separation through his route running and through his breaks and his releases, which is really another quiver to his bow, as a power slot receiver. He's also got the speed to burn. If he's running a seam or a wheel route, you can see that speed. He runs a 4.4, absolutely killed it at the combine, by the way, a 9.94 relative athletic score. If you don't know what that is, Kentley Platt at MathBomb on Twitter or X gives every player at the combine a relative score based on their size and their weight, and then compares that to their speed. So someone like Tez Johnson, who's like 154 pounds, running a 4.4, is not quite the same as Isaac TeSlaa, who is 214 pounds, running a 4.4 as well. So it gives him a score relative to that, and a 9.94 out of 10. He's a damn good athlete, and he's got really strong hands. He's got no drops in his career. And he also, which is why I think it's so important to watch tape and not just the highlight reels, is he was open way more than he was targeted. Like, this guy was genuinely should have got the ball like 5+ more times a game if the quarterback was looking his way. And I think to a degree that does answer some of the more modest career production questions, which I'll talk about now. But the weaknesses with TeSlaa is that he tries to be more shifty than he is. And I like that he's got that shiftiness about him. I like that he has that agility and that footwork. But he's trying to play like he's Malik Neighbors, it seems sometimes. And as a result, he's losing a lot of speed on his stems of his route. So if he's running let's say a corner route from the slot and the defensive back's 5 yards off, rather than just steaming at them for 5 yards, giving a head fake, giving a small move and then running the route, he kind of jutters up with small, short steps and is trying to kind of play like that, 5'10", 200-pound, 180-pound receiver, and just can't get the speed back up. And so almost kind of puts himself in a position where he can't create any more separation. And his acceleration out of his breaks really isn't there either. So if you want this guy to run like a whip route, forget about it. Like, I'm sure he could do it to a degree, but there's probably someone on your roster that can do it better than he can. So any sort of 90-degree cuts, I don't really want this guy running. And also his pad level throughout the route changes. So when he's about to break down or when he's trying to get out of his break, his pads will rise up. And what that does is it televises to the defensive back, to the linebacker, whoever's covering him, that, something's about to happen in the route. And that's when they can make a play on it. So I think that his route running is good. I think that I do like his agility, but I want him to almost play more like that power slot that he projects as. Use his size, use his speed. And if he throws in that agility as well, then you've got a really well-rounded power slot player. And fundamentally, for me with TeSlaa is that he is going to be a great QB safety blanket. One of those players that, isn't necessarily going to be running deep. He can run deep, but fundamentally, if your number one is covered and you're going to TeSlaa over the middle or from the slot or wherever, he's going to get pumped loads of targets. So as a result, I want to see this guy in a Sean McVay or a Shanahan offense, get him running, lateral routes across the middle of the field, get him running deep down the field as well from time to time. But fundamentally, don't let this guy's speed and physicality show up rather than him having to try and win with that agility. But I think with Tesla, which playing wide receiver, I think it's a bit easier to carve himself a role in an NFL offense, considering depending on what team they go to, might have 3 receivers on the field at any given time. And that does open the door to have that potential to make a play, make a name for himself, and carve himself a role on an NFL roster. And I really hope he does, because he is a damn good player. So on the screen now, you'll see my 5 sleepers. And again, these are sleepers, guys. So players like Jacob Parrish, Jalen Knoll, Jalen Royals, these guys that are going to get drafted maybe on day 2, I wouldn't class those guys as sleepers. I love them and they're fantastic, but they're not quite sleepers. So if I've missed anyone else, one that's going to go on day 3 in the later rounds that you guys know about that I have not mentioned, then do let me know in the comments. I want to watch all the tape on them. Make sure you subscribe as well. And also, let me know about what you think of these guys. If you haven't heard of them, go and watch them because they are brilliant players. And I've put them on this list and I've gone through the tape of other players in this category to try and find the best sleepers for you guys. So I do feel pretty confident about this list, but we'll come back to it in a year, 2, 3, 4 years time and see if any of these guys have actually lived up to what I think their potential could be. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. We'll see you on the next video.